At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Happy Thursday. Callow's taking a vacation this week. You won't be on Friday or Monday. Where are you going, Callow?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm just
taking a reset?
Complete reset. No caps. This Four Nations tournament got underway last night, but yeah I'm pulling a U. I just need
a couple days.
I need a couple days with nothing. And this was, where it relies on my calendar before we do the last 27-8 games, whatever is left of the season.
Yeah, this is bye week for you. You're like, I just need a couple days. So you're not going anywhere?
No,
I would fly to Puerto Rico. That's what I do.
Beach. I'm in the middle of marathon training again. So if I fly somewhere, I still got to go run 15 miles on Sunday. So
that's right. Where are you running? What's the next one you're doing? Where?
It's in Pennsylvania, Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania.
Oh, right. Yeah, you told me that.
Middle
of Pennsylvania. Yeah, I'm like, can I cheer him on? I don't know. That's a drive. I don't know.
I don't think you want to drive 4 hours in the middle of nowhere. It's fine. I'm not offended.
Run your 26 miles on your own this time.
Yeah. I might do Marine Corps again next year. We'll see, or this year. So we'll see. But no. This is the definition of a solo outing. But I still got to train for it. So if I were to fly to Puerto Rico, I'd have to run 15 miles on the beach somewhere, which is difficult. So.
I'd like to thank my friends at All Pro Reels. They do all the pictures of all the commanders all the time, like all the really nice pictures that you see out on the internet all the time. And they do a lot of other stuff with a lot of other teams too. They'd probably do more with the Wizards, you'd notice, if they weren't 9-44. But you'd see you see that their work if you saw it.
Yes.
You may have noticed our social media has changed the last couple of months. They've been behind that, helping us with it. And so we've gotten a lot more traction with a lot of the shows that we're doing, and people are reacting. And I only say that because I did find out yesterday, nobody wants me to go after Deebo Samuel. Okay. Yeah. Your reaction was heard. It was very strong. And I think what I said yesterday was, I defer to Adam Peters on this one because he knows him. Like, he was in the organization with him for the bulk of his career, obviously not last year, and he didn't miss time again last year, but I would trust him to make a decision about whether you would pursue him because he knows him. Like, that's the good news. He knows him. I didn't say definitively go after him. I think I said, what does Peters know about him? That's what I would want to know. And if he thinks like, hey, he's fine and we've got a role for him and we need to upgrade receiver, which we do, then I would target him over Kupp. But that's all I said. But I heard you. And again, thank you to All Pro Reels for amplifying us because people are reacting differently to some of our clips these days. But I hear you. That's all. I hear you. And I didn't say we should. I haven't said we should. I think we should call about Myles Garrett because he's a game-changing player. Deebo used to be, and I don't know if he still is. Well, I think he is. Can he be on the field regularly to be that? I think is just the bigger question. And then what do you got to pay him? That's the other problem too. And would the Niners trade him to Peters? Maybe, I guess. I don't know. Are they in the business of sending a good player to the team that might dethrone them as being one of the contenders? Maybe, maybe not. So there's a lot there. But I would just say, I heard you about Deebo. You don't like him that much. And you've been, it resonated. Okay. I heard you.
Yeah, it's all the wrong things that you have for a player that you trade for. He's getting old. He's often injured. He's only got a year left. So what's the price tag even on that one? He also, remember the whole point of contention when they gave him that new contract 3 years ago was, oh, I don't want to be a running back anymore. Well,
yes.
Cliff Kingsbury.
I don't blame him, really. I don't blame him. I mean,
me too.
He's a wide receiver. He's taking too many hits being a running back.
I agree 100%, but I also will say this. Cliff Kingsbury did not hesitate to get creative with all of his players last year to try to get the ball in certain guys' hands. So, if you're kind of having to avoid that situation, I don't know. It just doesn't scream a situation that's ideal for me to go get him. If he's super cheap, I'm willing to take a flyer, but I don't think he's going to be.
This is, you have to recall a couple of years ago, every running back they had got hurt, like all of them. So they were kind of in a situation where they had to force him that way. That's a larger question of how they use their running backs, and is there a pattern there, as opposed to was it all just bad luck? Because McCaffrey was getting hurt before he ever went over there. He missed the majority of the season last year. The backup, who was really good at the beginning of the season, got hurt in the middle of the season. Remember, it happened again this year where they were down to like whatever running back you've never heard of again. So there's something about that machine that breaks the parts, I think, with the running backs. And for Deebo, I don't blame him. Like, you don't want to be part of that. If you're a wide receiver, you definitely don't want to be part of that. Here and there when they're running jet sweeps or they move you back there once in a while to try to switch things up. I'm sure everybody's down for that stuff, but he doesn't want to be B-Rob. Like, trust me, he doesn't want anything to do with that. So, all right, you've been heard, everybody. The reaction was no to Deebo. I would say that would be a pretty big upgrade from what we have, but I hear you for all the reasons. And if he's not going to be available, then I really don't want him, especially whatever the price point is going to be. All right, so there's that. I saw this yesterday where Dak Prescott did an interview and he described next season as our turn, that they're ready to kind of leap up, to which I would describe our turn as this year's all in from them again, albeit free agency hasn't started yet. So we don't know what they're going to do. And I bet Dallas doesn't do anything grandiose, because I wouldn't expect them to do anything grandiose other than maybe wisely try to sign Micah Parsons to a long-term deal before his contract gets even closer to expiring. And people look at Jerry and go, what are you doing with him? Why are you waiting on him? Why wouldn't you get him done? He's one of the best players in the league. He's in his mid-20s. Why would you even threaten losing him? But outside of that, I don't expect them to do anything. So McCarthy left. They hired the guy below him who didn't call the plays, lost the majority of the staff in and around it, had to rehire them. I don't think they're going to do anything crazy in free agency because it doesn't read like they would. I'll be surprised if they do. Where's our turn coming from? Like, what? Why even? I guess I'm all for confidence, but why even say that?
He also said that he believes the Cowboys were on the same level as the Eagles. And I will say, I had to fact check this. Dak got hurt last year, obviously, before they even played each other. They got killed in both games. Not a shocker there. But I went back and looked. They actually split that series for like the last 3 or 4 years. So I think that's probably where Dak is coming from. And granted, division game, and the Cowboys were very good in the regular season, before last year. So I think that's where Dak's coming from, is that he thinks because they've split with the Eagles that they're right there on their level. But you and I both know, even if Dak was healthy last year, that team was different. They did not go all in. They were missing pieces.
Right.
And oh, by the way, this whole it's our turn thing or whatever, Dak's cap hit is $90 million next year. Like, what are they going to be able to do to upgrade the team that much when he is making that much money? And you and I think we like Dak, but he ain't a difference maker in terms of elevating talent. We know what he is at this level of his career. So I don't blame the guy for saying the right thing, but come on, man. Like, you guys are not going to be much better than you were last year. Like
CeeDee Lamb had big, high targeted, big number games with Cooper Rush was the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think Dak is way better than Cooper Rush. Don't read this the wrong way.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm not one of those that thinks Dak is really average. I think he's above average. I think he's very good. I don't think he's one of the 5 best.
Correct. I think that's an accurate assessment.
On any given year, like especially a couple of years ago when he was close to being the MVP, he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. If you have a top 10 quarterback in the league, you can win. I don't think he's Lamar or Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes or hopefully our guy. Like, I don't think, or Burrow. I don't think he's one of those, but I don't think he's that far behind it. He's probably the tier below it, and you can win with that. Like it's that quarterback doesn't win every single time. I think people would say the same thing about Jalen Hurts, that they would say Jalen Hurts at times is a top 10 quarterback, but nobody thinks of him, even though he wins so much, that he's Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, or our guy. Like, nobody thinks of him that way. So, like, I think he's way better than Cooper Rush, but to your point, the numbers didn't really slip off on their offense when Cooper Rush goes and plays, at least in the short, amount of time that we saw it. I believe over a course of a season, it probably would slip off. Like, I would imagine that Dak is valuable. He's a good player. But like what you can't compare the few years before this past year. This is where everything changed. That's when I drew a line in the sand and I said, they're going to be different. They're not winning 12 games again. This is what opened the door for me to go, I don't know what the Commanders are, but I think they could be second place in the division because of them. Not because of us, because of them, because they lost too many players on defense. They lost their entire defensive staff. Their offensive line doesn't look the same. I don't know what their running game is. Like, it doesn't look nearly as formidable. Gallup's gone. Who's the number 2 receiver if Cooks isn't healthy? I don't even know. Like, that's not even that good of a team anymore. Like, they have good players, and they could, because it's the NFL, end up with 8-9 wins, but that's it. Like, they're not getting back to 12 again. That's what opened the door for me. Until proven otherwise, and I really don't expect them to do anything, at least in free agency, that wows anybody. How are they going to get much better than what they were, other than they get Dak back? And I assume they're like a candidate to draft that Boise State running back to like try to do something like that. And that may feel like a big deal if they get him there and solve that problem. Dowdle was actually very good by the end of the season, like very good. Not great, but like very good, effective player by the end of the season. So I would look at him as he's the new Pollard, as the number 2 punch to whoever the number 1 punch is. And that's actually a very good backfield if you get the right guy. But it doesn't feel like anything they do sitting here now in February is going to be enough to say, they're challenging Philadelphia, or potentially, because we know we're going to do things, us. So I appreciate the confidence, Dak. I wish you a lot of luck with that.
Yeah, they're running into the problem that I said, except they're not nearly as talented as the Niners or the Eagles. But I was having this discussion yesterday with you about how, like, we need the Eagles to run into what the Niners' problem is every offseason. They get a guy holding out every year, or guys want extensions or whatever. The problem
We're
with
2
the
years away from that, unfortunately, because a lot of the that's where Jalen Carter comes in, and he's still got to wait out 2 more years on his contract to do that.
No, absolutely. But like with the Cowboys, they've had it at the wrong positions and like nowhere else. It's quarterback, it's wide receiver, and it's about to be edge rusher. And there's not much around them that's like elite. I'm not saying they have a bad team overall. I think that Dallas is actually like fairly stacked, but they have elite talent at probably the three most expensive positions in the league, or they're paying them like elite talent, especially at quarterback, and they're not going to get elite play out of that. That's where I think you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's why, like, I don't know if you saw, like, some of the reporting was like they've had internal discussions about possibly trading Micah. I don't think Jerry will ever do that, ever.
Oh, I don't think so either. I don't buy that for a second.
Neither do I. So, like, he's going to get whatever he's going to get. And then all of a sudden, they're going to be paying, Micah, CeeDee Lamb, Dak, $180 million between the 3 of them, or whatever it's going to be, like, per year. Good luck building a team around that. So,
yeah, they also, like, this has been their biggest issue, actually, is they've mismanaged the negotiations of the star contracts to the point where they're either paying more or don't have it structured in a way where you could move the money around. Like, if you're projecting out, what are we going to do in a couple of years, then you better sign Micah now and not wait until whatever that number is going to be at the time when he hits free agency. And then you're like, well, we could just franchise him. And you start playing this game. Like, I would argue in the case of someone like that, where it's so obvious he's going to be there long term and he's going to be one of your faces of your franchise. And at his age, just get it over with now, get the number. It's not going to be reasonable, but you get it at the point where you can start working with it. So then when the number becomes unwieldy, at the time when it becomes unwieldy, you can deal with it and restructure with him. That's what you do in these situations. They didn't do this with their quarterback, I think largely because they didn't want to retain him long term. That's what I think that was about. I don't think it was about anything else. Like, that was my read on it the whole time. They were wishy-washy about wanting to sign him the whole time. And then they found out the hard way, what's your alternative? And then when they found out what their alternative was, it's too late, and he's a quarterback. So now he's making Lamar money, and he's not Lamar.
Right.
And you'd think, of all people, like we were talking about Deshaun yesterday, Cleveland did what they did because it was the only way to get him. It ended up being a massive mistake, but that's why they did it. He wasn't going to sign there. The only reason why he signed there was because they gave him a guaranteed contract, and he wisely took it, frankly. Like, wisely took it, because You don't know what the scenarios would have been in any of these other places, but let's just say it didn't go well in any of the other one. They would have cut him by now and gotten rid of whatever the non-guaranteed portion of the contract was. Cleveland's stuck with paying him the money. He gets the money no matter what. With Dak, it was different. They felt like they somehow held some kind of leverage over what his number was going to be. And Dak and his representative wisely were like, we're a quarterback guy. We're a top 10 quarterback. You don't think there's 5 other teams out there that are going to pay us the number if you actually let us get to free agency? And Jerry's sitting there going like, I can just see it. He's just like in his head going, you're not Troy Aikman, right? And they're going, we don't care. Right. And he didn't get the reality of he was on the wrong side of the leverage, which I think is the biggest issue I think Cowboys fans ought to have with what's going on right now, is that their owner, who's the chief negotiator, doesn't seem to understand the business of the sport right now to the point where he gets beaten in negotiations by his stars consistently, and that doesn't help him build his team.
Well, and on top of that, remember, there's something up with Dallas that they don't know how to negotiate modern contracts either, or at
Correct.
least get ahead of them. Because remember the whole Dak thing that I was screaming about in the summer was he, no matter what happened, had a $40 million dead cap hit this upcoming season,
right?
Whether they signed him or not. And that's where I was going. Dallas screwed themselves here because you can't have a $40 million dead cap hit and then not have a quarterback on the other side of it. So they were forced to sign him because they didn't get ahead of this one too. Because had they done this 2 years ago and just extended him out, they would have been ahead of that one. I don't know if they would have been able to cut him by any means, but here it is now. Now he makes $90 million going into next year. It's so insane.
Your choices are really, and nobody wants to do this because, this is the problem, like backlash is you don't want to trade a quarterback, especially a good one. But if it was going to end up like this, you're almost better served trading him.
Yep.
Like getting probably 2 first-round picks for him. If that's what it is, like if you don't want to pay him this, then trade him. The problem is, this, and everybody knows this, there are no alternatives out there. That's the big smoot line. There's 10 billion people in the world, and we can't find 32 who can play quarterback at a high level.
Right.
So there is no alternative. But that's why your choices are, and this happened to the Redskins back in the day with Kirk Cousins when the money was much lower, but the same impact on the cap was going on. So it doesn't really matter. It's apples to apples, just the money was lower, but it was same impact percentage-wise on the cap. They didn't really want him, but they didn't want to trade him, but they wanted him to take a sweetheart deal, but he's a quarterback and he's not going to do that. And then when push comes to shove, he gets market value from somebody else. And that's exactly what happened to Dallas, except they bit the bullet and paid him a number in a structure that they should have never paid him. So that's their biggest issue. And I think this is why everybody's so freaked out about Jerry, is that they're losing in these negotiations. He doesn't even seem to see it that way at all. And anybody in the organization, what are you going to say to him? He's the owner. You can't say anything to him. He needs to, until he bows out of the day-to-day part of it, where he's negotiating the contracts, picking the players, all that stuff, they're going to be in trouble for a while. It's already there. It's obvious. Did you see the clip the other day from the NFL awards where he called them the Redskins? Did you?
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, it was Mitch Tischler, I think, got him on that. Yeah.
He called them the Redskins. And then he said some line. I was laughing when I saw it. It was like some line of I hate that we have to play this guy twice a year, and maybe he'll just give us some of the crumbs of the NFC East or something like that. Like some old school Jerry line, like Wild West Jerry line. Well, I hope we get a couple of them crumbs.
Well, he did go full shield though when he was said something along the lines of the league is better when Washington is good. I was like, all right, Jerry owns the Cowboys, but he is shield, when he needs to be. So yeah, I did see that.
All right. So speaking of teams that don't seem to understand this stuff very often, Joe Burrow is starting to and I think he's doing the right thing here. He made the rounds at Radio Row, and it's continued this week where he's needling his team into, you've got to keep the players. I know you don't want to. I know writing those checks makes you crazy. I know that like deep down in the recesses of your brain, you can't believe you're writing checks this big to anybody. But if you want to win, it's what you have to do. And he like went out of his way to go, Philadelphia just won the Super Bowl. Look at how they pay their players. This is how it works when you have a team that can possibly win. So the choice is yours, guys. You can either do that and we can compete, or you can not do that and I will be asking for a trade ASAP, buddy. Like, he didn't have to say that to allude to that and mean that. So when they lose Higgins, is he going to freak out? I don't know. If they keep Chase and they keep Hendrickson, I think that'll be enough to probably suffice. And I think they'll probably say to him, listen, you can't keep everybody in this situation. You do have to make choices. I don't know if Burrow's going to hear that or not. I will tell you this. If for some reason Jamar Chase is not on that team next year, he's going to lose his you-know-what, and he's going to demand to get out of there.
I mean, I think Joe Burrow getting traded is the most predictable thing of all time. Like, I said this, even when he signed the extension, I thought he's not going to play that out because the Bengals are going to either play this guy out, as in not surround him with talent, or he's going to get sick of losing because they don't keep the talent. And I feel like we're already on a collision course with it. You tell me that they're going to hand out money to two players? I don't think they will. Like, you know,
got to give it to Chase. They have no choice.
I agree.
He is like, if he's not the best receiver in the NFL right now, he's in the argument about it. So either way, you have to give it to him. In my opinion, you have to give it to him.
I agree 100%, but also it's a no-brainer to sign Hendrickson as well. And you know how the Bengals operate. They will not hand out two large contracts.
I don't think they're going to do it.
Neither do I. So it's going to be probably Chase because you want to keep Burrow happy. And then it's going to be, all right, we're going to trade Hendrickson and then try to reload in the draft. And good luck with that. Like, you don't trade players like that if you want to actually compete. And here's the other side of it too. They're in the AFC. Like, they're the fifth best team on paper, essentially, right now. Like, they can upgrade, but you got four juggernauts right in front of you, essentially. So they're also in the wrong conference to be messing around like this in their roster. That's the unfortunate part here where I think Burrow is going to ask to get traded.
Well, with Burrow, let's see. Who do you think's better? Buffalo's better? You think Buffalo's better,
Buffalo,
right?
Kansas City, Baltimore.
Kansas City's interesting. They're an interesting test case to talk about what the future looks like with them. But I mean, their record was what their record was, and they were in the Super Bowl again. So it's like all the arguments about like where they're going probably are hard to make. I'm kind of looking at, we've hit an interesting kind of point with them where I wouldn't be surprised if it starts to dip down a little bit, but Mahomes is so good that they'll never be bad. It's the same thing I felt about Buffalo this past year. I was surprised they were as good as they were because like they did what looked to be like a reset of their roster. And I did wonder, did McDermott kind of tap out with like where they could get to because they hadn't gotten over the hump? They surprised me because Allen is so good. They surprised me. So I don't put anything past Mahomes, but it does feel like an interesting point where Kansas City could dip back a little bit towards the mean after what happened in the Super Bowl. And if you realistically look at their personnel, especially on offense, they need to upgrade it significantly. Like, they're not good enough on that. They're just not. And I don't know what they can and cannot do, but they're not. So they're an interesting one. Baltimore, you think's better than Cincinnati?
Yeah,
although
absolutely.
That's probably close.
No, I don't think that. I mean, I think it's close. I think it's close, but I think they are definitively the better team. Oh, top to bottom, I think they are.
Okay, then who else? Who else do you think is better than them, than Cincinnati right now? Or like when Burrow, and assuming Chase is back, when they're healthy on that side of the ball, like who's actually better than them than those three right now? We haven't had an off season yet, so I don't know.
No, you're right. Maybe it's three.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of four. Like, you could put the Texans on their same level, but they had a down year.
Maybe.
But they still won a playoff game though. So I mean,
sure.
You can maybe put them in that same category. But the Texans, though, at the same time, are not like afraid to spend money. They'll give out the contracts. They traded for Diggs last year. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll put
because Diggs is probably leaving, right? So I want to see what happens there. Like, that was a 1-year test for both sides. They actually got a pretty good deal on him.
Yeah, that one was actually a good deal. They gave him like a new contract where I think it then became a player option. So if he wanted to stick around, he could, and I don't think he's going to. But like
he wanted to test the water, see how it went, and hopefully get a new deal with them. And if it doesn't go well, he'll get a new deal somewhere else. It's risky for him though, because if he doesn't have a big year, then people devalue him as an older wide receiver, and he doesn't get the same money as some of these other guys. So his offseason is going to be weird. I think there will be a market for him. It'll be at a price point though.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think one other team that I'll just throw in the ring there, and maybe they're not as good as the Bengals right now, but they've been making good moves for the last year or two, is the Broncos too. Now they have a quarterback. Like, let's see what they do this offseason too. I liked some of their games, some of their wins this year. I hated some of their losses, so they're up and down. But I don't know. The fact that I'm even throwing those teams around the Bengals tells me they're still not as good as the three in front of them. But we have seen Burrow get them to a Super Bowl, so that's worth something in these arguments too.
If the Bengals front office isn't watching what's happening in Dallas, though, right now with the reaction to trading away a generational player, then they're not paying attention to what this could do to sports. And you always like to point out how they always said business was booming with him. Yeah. If they trade him, those people are going to lose it.
Yep. Correct. Absolutely.
Lose it on them. And I think we're a ways away from that. I think we're ways away from that.
I think we're 2 years away.
The groundwork's being laid, and Burrow is saying this stuff publicly, probably because he thinks they're not going to do it, and he's trying to publicly pressure them to do it.
Well, and it's also, you know how this works. Like, there's not a new manual for how the Bengals are going to spin this either. It's going to go, well, we wanted to trade these guys so we could get all these other picks and we can reload and go for another Super Bowl again. Like, that's exactly how they're going to spin it. And Burrow is like, I'm not trying to develop the 21-year-old wide receiver this late in my career. Like, come on, guys. Like, that's what he's doing.
We have our receivers. Sign them.
Right. Or he's yelling about, why don't you sign him and then trade for another one? Like, he's saying do more. This is the bare minimum the Bengals are doing. Like, that's what's troubling here is like,
the Eagles were also really good and they signed Saquon Barkley.
Correct. Like, I think that's why Burrow's freaking out because he's going, I see that team in Washington and they have their new quarterback. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to go and make some moves on both sides of the ball. And he's like, you know what you guys haven't done? That ever.
Right.
So I think that's what he's bugging out about. He's like, you're not even keeping my team around and you're not trying to, be out there and get some better moves in as well.
The team crumbling part of it also, this is a lower tier thing that a lot of people aren't paying attention to, but Jermaine Pratt's a very good player. Linebacker, very good player. He's asked for a trade. Now, like I've heard that he's very close with the DC who just left, Lou Anarumo, who I was actually surprised that they let him go. They had a down year. We played Cincinnati in week 3. I remember getting ready for that game. And, T. Higgins was coming back and Cincinnati was 0-2. The Commanders were just 1-1 at that point. The Commanders were coming off a game where they didn't score a touchdown. Remember, no one thought they were going to win, yep. And I remember going into it thinking that the spread was a little too high for my liking. I'm like, I think I didn't know what I didn't know about Washington's offense and Jaden yet. And that was the night where they proved it. But I remember sitting there, I got to a big argument with another reporter about they were just like, they're getting ready to get blown out. And I'm like, no, they're not. I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, it's not because of whether I think Washington's good or not at this point. It's because Cincinnati's defense isn't very good. And they lost a couple of people. Their front isn't really formidable. Hendrickson's very good. Their linebackers are pretty good. Their secondary is average, average. And so I looked at them and I go, they're not that good on that side of the ball. So if, we'll see. So that's the other issue I think that Burrow's going to have here. He can keep Chase and Higgins, I suppose. Maybe Hendrickson too. They can get them to, to force that to happen. But that other side of the ball doesn't look like it's getting fixed anytime soon. So they're going to have to be an offensive juggernaut. Now, offense does in general win championships. So maybe not this past year, but the Eagles offense also happened to be really, really, really good this year. So if they're going to lean into one thing, they should probably lean into that. I would probably say to him, choice is yours. Do you want Higgins and Chase or do you want Chase and Hendrickson? Because you're not getting all three. That's probably what I would say to him. And Pratt wants out because he liked the coach he was working with and probably sees the writing on the wall here too, that it's not very good on that side of the ball right now. And he probably wants to get to a contender as well.
Well, I'm sure too, it's also turned into do you want to talk about a contract extension? They're like, buddy, you're fifth in line here. So you know what I mean? Like, that's probably the other part of this of,
Yeah, he's not getting any headway with the front office at all. They've got too many bigger fish to fry.
Correct.
No offense.
Correct.
They've got to get Chase done, Higgins figured out, Hendrickson. I mean, honestly, if you're not gonna sign Higgins, you should sign and trade him. That's how I feel about him. Sure. You can't let him walk out the door for nothing. That's crazy.
And Pratt also plays the weakest position in terms of contract negotiations. Nobody hands out big money to linebackers.
It's just another example of that thing might be crumbling a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, maybe.
Out there.
Maybe.
It's just another sign of that because he's a good player who plays on that team. If all of a sudden Frankie Louvu said, here, I don't want to be here anymore, it wouldn't make national waves, but here we'd go, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Because it's like someone who's in the locker room who really is good here that we'd go, Pratt is kind of that for them. He's very good there. All of a sudden, he don't want to be there anymore. Burrow's publicly telling them, spend the money, guys.
Yeah.
This is a show me off season for them. And if they lose 2 of those 3 and don't really do anything to upgrade the roster, it's going to get ugly, I think, there. And then all of a sudden, the fire sale starts to look like it might happen around there. All right, let me take a quick break. Brett wants to show ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Missing out on a show that everyone is talking about is not an option for me. I'm constantly signing up for this streaming service or that one. And then a few months later, I realize I've been paying for this service long after I actually finished that show. Getting Rocket Money was a game changer for me. They'll find your unwanted subscriptions. They'll even help you cancel them, so you never have to worry about them slipping through the cracks. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. Easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help you keep your spending on track. See your monthly spending trends at each category to know exactly where your money is going. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/game on today. That's rocketmoney.com/game on. rocketmoney.com/game on. All right, welcome back. I'm going to spend a lot more time tomorrow talking about this because I'm going to co-join it with what's going on with Jason Kelce at ESPN. But Travis Kelce did make an appearance on his podcast with his brother, New Heights. And I saw one clip, and his line was something to the effect of, I'm not sure if I'm playing next year. I'm not saying I'm retiring, but I want to think about it. That's not unusual, especially for someone at his age. And I know people think this is a very easy decision. It really isn't. Even for someone like myself, having done this for a long time, when the season's over, you really need to get away from it for at least a short period of time. It's very draining. It's nonstop. It's emotionally draining. And for them, physically draining. Obviously, that's the one difference that I have with, that I'll never understand the physical part that they go through, but it is really draining and you need a little time. I'm not suggesting I'm retiring. I'm not, but I get it. Why some of these guys say that, and it's real. They totally, you need to reset. You need to take a break. Callow needs to reset this weekend. He has a bye week. Everybody needs to reset. They need to reset when these things are over, especially when they play that far into it. So I will give him the grace of, I'll hear you out on that. But I've seen now, you probably saw this too. There were a couple clips that were shown on the internet from the Super Bowl where Kelce looks like he's not even trying in them. They're really bad look plays. Mahomes is scrambling around like a crazy person. He's just literally standing there in the middle of it, not trying to get open, not trying to block for him, none of it, just totally disengaged. And I think it's unfair to judge somebody who's had a Hall of Fame career on a couple of clips. I think that's unfair. That said, it's the Super Bowl, and to see it was jarring. And I'm sure today he's seeing this too, or knows how he played. And it's probably even a little internally jarring for himself. So he really needs some time to think about this, about do you really want to do this? Because you gave your worst effort in the biggest game. So what's that about? Why?
He did even acknowledge that too. Like he acknowledged personally during the clip of saying that he was going to take some time, was just like, I wish I could have played better. And he literally like apologized and just said, I couldn't be the player I wanted to be that day, or whatever the phrase was. Don't quote me on it, but he was basically just already very apologetic for however his play was. And I don't know what was going on. The clip that I actually point to was, I don't know if you were watching the TV when they were going to halftime and they showed him walking off the sideline. He looked like he was about to cry. Like, and
they were down 24-0.
But that's a 3-possession game for one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So like, for me, like I don't know. Like, yeah, I get it. It's tough sledding. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't 40-0. Like, there is a difference there. You're getting the ball back at half. Like, you had a disastrous first half and you've been down 10-0 in every Super Bowl. Like, suck it up. His body language and the way he looked was actually jarring to me, because he's actually usually one of the ones that's really competitive. Remember, he and Andy Reid got in the screaming match last year? Like, that's the Kelsey that I was waiting for him to yell at somebody. But I don't know. To me, it was the body language. And I don't know, maybe was he banged up? Was the season catching up to him? Was he just mentally checked out? That's crazy to think in the Super Bowl that he was, but you're right. Like it looked that way. So I don't know what was going on.
It didn't look right. And yeah, I heard the clip too, where he was like, I wasn't myself or whatever it was. So maybe something will come out about whatever was going on. Like, people always forget these guys are human. Like, I don't know what was going on. Like, I don't know either, but it looks bad. Sounds really bad. They played really poorly going in. I think I said, like, the Eagles' issue is covering tight ends. They allow a lot of yards to them. This means this guy should have a huge game here. Well, not if he's disengaged, and you need to ask yourself, why was I not ready to play in the Super Bowl?
Right. Exactly.
And only he has probably an answer for that will make any sense at all. So I don't know what he's going to do. I'm not trying to speculate. I don't know. I kind of feel like, I thought Ryan Clark put it really well the other day when he said he's going to have to live with being an average player, not being what he was. Can he live with that? And do the Chiefs want to pay him to be that? Right. And I don't know. And maybe he doesn't want to be that. So if I had to guess right now, he's going to retire. That's my guess. But like, I also think for him and his future and catching up to his brother, because started his media career for real, and they are clearly better together than they are separately right now. It might be the right thing to do also to transition into it sooner rather than later. So my guess in February is he retires. That's what I think is going to happen.
I'll flip the other way here only because of one factor. He broke, I believe it was Jerry Rice's record for most catches in the Super Bowl. Even in the loss on Sunday, I think it was Jerry Rice. So he has the most catches of any player in the Super Bowls, in Super Bowls cumulative. My thing is, I think he's a little too prideful. I don't think he's going to retire off a Super Bowl loss. I think he runs it back one more year. And maybe, because I think we've seen this before with these types of athletes, they should hang it up, but they can never get over losing the last game and then retiring. So I think he would if they had won, but they didn't. And I think he's going to run it back one more time. That's what I think.
Yeah. The other thing, and nobody knows this, only he knows this, like what the longevity of an extremely high profile relationship is. And if that is not going to continue into next year, that's going to be publicly mocked for him.
Yep.
And so, not that he needs to think about that, but that's just welcome to the internet. Welcome to mean sports fans. Welcome to all of that. And he's going to be an older player coming off an average year. And if he suddenly, for whatever reason, isn't with her, or even if he is, because it's like she got booed at the Super Bowl the other day.
Yeah,
it's just an added layer. And when you're together with someone like that, there's always an added layer. But it is something to think about. Like, if he knows that this is not going in the direction of marriage anytime soon, and they may end up going their separate ways, like, you're going to find out what kind of skin he has when he has to do interviews the week of a Raiders game about her. Like, it's just, that stuff sucks. That's just the reality of the world we live in, and that sucks. But I think he needs to think through, what is it going to be like being a professional football player if that's not ending? And maybe he's getting married to her. I don't know. But
well,
who knows?
As you and I know, when Taylor Swift has a breakup, we all know it happens too.
Yes.
So it'd be a little more high profile than we're used
Correct.
to.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's crazy you have to think about that, but I think he does. Like, you know, and only he knows what his relationship is. And if everything's going great and they look like they're going to be together for the long term, then don't worry about it. But if they're not, she's the most famous woman in the world. So if they're not, you know, like, I don't know.
The other factor of this too, by the way, like I'm glad you brought up like what the fan perception is going to be. Did you see Jason Kelsey getting emotional? He must have been going through it at the Super Bowl with fans. Did you see him like basically start crying on New Heights? Jason had to like reiterate. He was like, I told everybody going into the Super Bowl, I was going to be happy and sad no matter what happened because I played for that team, the Eagles, know all of those guys personally, made the difficult decision to hang it up. And if they won, I'd be so thrilled for them, but I'd be devastated for Travis because he's my brother. And they said, and vice versa. I'd be devastated for all of them and be happy for my brother. And he got emotional because I don't know if people were giving him crap for it all week or whatever, but yeah, to your point about the fan interaction, that's like 1% of what Travis Kelsey would get if whatever you're talking about is. And if it was getting Jason like that, it would probably get Travis in a pretty similar way, if not worse.
I mean, like, listen, being this high profile person is hard. It's really, 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 there's great parts to it. It's hard all at the same time. So they got to think about it. All right, we'll be right back. Very much the show is ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let's talk a little basketball for a moment. Brian Windhorst says that Kevin Durant is getting dealt this offseason and everybody knows it. He knows it, the Suns know it, and everybody knows it. They did try to trade him to the Warriors. He acknowledges this. Durant, this is rare. He acknowledged that they did try to send him to the Warriors as part of getting Jimmy Butler to the Suns, and he nixed that because he said he didn't want to go back and have a reunion with them, which I don't know why. I mean, it's a better situation than the one he's in Phoenix currently. They couldn't get out of Brad. So I don't know why he didn't want to do it, but he didn't want to do it. So it's not the worst thing in the world that you have to play out the season with Kevin Durant, but he is getting moved. And Windhorst says he knows this. Everybody knows this. So we'll see where he goes. We're long past KD to DC for sure, but I don't know where his career goes from here. It'll be interesting. And I'd love a little more context to why he didn't think going back and playing with Steph and Draymond was a path to being competitive again.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know Durant's just a weird dude, though. Like we've seen this where he beats to his own drum. I'm interested to see what the trade market is for him. Like, I'm sure somebody would trade for him, but sure. Is he elite anymore? Is he a difference maker? Sure, but like, I think the track record kind of speaks for itself with him at this point. He went to Golden State, joined that super team. They won championships before. They won championships with him. They won championships after without him. He went to Brooklyn, had two superstars there, couldn't get it done. Is on the Suns now, can't get it done. Like, I don't know. What's the market? What team is trading for him that they think puts him over the top? Because I think his track record the last couple of years has spoken for itself.
I mean, like, so would he go back to Oklahoma? Let's say they fall short, Oklahoma City this year, because they've got a crazy record. Sure. They're going to win the West. They're 8 games clear.
Yep.
And let's just say because you'll go listen to the same segments where they'll go, nobody thinks they're unbeatable. Like, there's not a single team that thinks they're unbeatable. Like, just get into the dance, get them, and you'll see what happens. Let's say they fall short. They lose in the semifinals or Western Conference Finals. Do they look at him, bring him home, and he's off the bench, but he could be a closer for them, another piece that puts them over the top? Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. Does Minnesota, who just changed ownership and it's A-Rod now, want to make some kind of splashy decision off of the trade they made a year ago to give somebody to Ant to make him feel like, hey, I've got a superstar with him? Like, I could see that. But I agree. I don't know what the market looks like. I don't think it's vibrant.
Yep.
For him.
Right.
I think
exactly.
the teams that are set, there are very few that are set that would look at him and go, let's bring him in here, I think. Like, what would his role be?
Well, and you have to factor, like, where does he want to go? Because I guess like the OKC and Minnesota markets, those actually sounds like markets he would like to go to. Like we know one thing about KD is he likes being low key and not like this high profile athlete. And like you look at some of the other teams that might want to hit a reset and trade for him. Like, would Miami want to trade for him? But would he want to go to Miami? I don't think so. I don't think he wants to mess around with Pat Riley in that franchise.
I don't think so either. And then off of that trade, like, why would he want to go there now? Like, they don't look any closer to winning, right?
Exactly.
That would be to just want to live there.
Right. Which isn't KD, though. KD wouldn't want to live in Miami. So, yeah, like, I think this is a kind of a, I don't know, whatever the market is, I don't think he's going to garner, like, all these picks back either. Like, he's going to get some assets, but nothing crazy.
Yeah. I looked at the standings. It won't happen, but the Lakers-Dallas is possible in the playoffs. They would need Dallas to win enough to get to about the 5-4 situation. And there are a few games, 3-4, or like 4 games back of that. So it's very unlikely that would happen. But, you know, for Adam Silver, who's begging for viewership and all this stuff, if they could get that, that would just be amazing.
Well, I mean, AD's already hurt. So, I mean, you know,
it's not going to happen. Like good luck with that. It's not going to happen. But like games 3 and 4 in Dallas with Luka there would be outrageous. Just
I agree.
The crowds would be worth the price of admission. It'd be a sellout to boo the management and ownership of the team.
I was going to say, I think you'd see 77 Lakers jerseys in the crowd. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Last thing. So not that I'm surprised by this, because Stephen A. Smith has been going on a lot of Fox, CNBC, like all the political, you know, like channels, not afraid to go on any of them, likes going on Fox. Sean Hannity likes having him on. He'll argue with them. Stephen A. just likes arguing with people. He's been dabbling in politics. As of a couple of weeks ago, there was, I don't know who did this, but there was an actual poll that was done, and it was like 2% of people would, you know, want Stephen A. Smith to be president. Those are all Knicks fans, I guess. I don't know who that is. I don't know who is that got polled that. Like when we made fun of the Today Show did the Commander's name release, and I'm like, Ethel in Madison, Wisconsin has no idea what's going on here right now. Ethel in Wisconsin has no idea who Stephen A. Smith is. Like no idea. So it'd be a long road to get there. But yesterday on one of those networks, I can't remember which one, it was like CNBC or something like that, he did say, I would have interest in it to run for president. So, like, not that I'm surprised. Like, when he said last week, I'm not a politician, I don't want to do this, I was like, good. Like, that makes more sense to who you are. But now he's admitted that he is, and not that I'm surprised because he keeps showing up on these shows, that he is interested in something like this.
I mean, we live in the dumbest timeline. Like, out of
I
all
love Stephen A., but give me a break. Like, it's not a debate with Kim Jong-un, okay? But Kim Jong-un is not Skip. Like, what are we talking about here?
This is not a political statement. Look at our current president. You didn't think he took a look at Trump and said, well, I can do that if he can do that.
I agree with that.
So and like I said, that's not a political statement. There's a guy that did not enter in politics at all his entire life and became the president. So I think Stephen A. is going.
This is like, I'm the voice of the Commanders. I went viral 5 times. Should I be the governor of Maryland? Like, what?
I think you're aiming too low. Aim for president, because apparently that's what you got to do. Like, I mean, once again, I'm not even making a political statement here. A failed U.S. businessman is a 2-time president in this country. I think Stephen A. took a look at that and went, I'll throw my hat in the ring, and I think he should.
I would just ask him this: why would he want that job?
That's a good question too. I wouldn't want that job these days. So yeah, I don't know. What side of the aisle would he run on to? Did he say?
There's a large group of impressionists out there going, please run for president because you're going to make my career.
It's correct. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Malaysia.
Yeah. Right. SNL would be fantastic, actually.
Yes. Vladimir Putin is not Dan Orlovsky. Like, it's not going to be the same conversation.
Right. Exactly.
Well, listen, I get it has. Trump has changed everything. Anybody can be president.
That's right. Yeah. Follow your dreams, kids.
Yeah,
follow your dreams.
I guess. All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Bram and Callow, 6:30 Sports Capital.